Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm excited to share with you today a mashup of a couple of episodes we aired last year. I mean, if we got it right the first time, why do it again, right? This mashup of episodes is a combination of a couple of core episodes that I've actually shared a lot ever since. These episodes are really an introduction into how to handle 1099s, both as the one sending them and the one receiving. So you have the ability here, if you need to skip ahead to what happens if you receive a 1099, you can do that. You can also listen to the front half, which is how to send a 1099 or who needs one. This episode is kind of your one-stop shop for anything 1099 related because that deadline is coming up right at the end of this month. So let's dive in and learn more about the good old 1099. Hey, welcome back. Today, we're going to be going through a really core question around 1099s, which is, do I need to file them and who needs to be getting them from me? We're going to start with who needs to send them, who needs to receive them, what are they, right? The basics, the fundamentals. So a 1099, and I'm going to use the term 1099, but what I really mean for the majority of the examples I'm going to use is the 1099 NEC, which is the non-employee compensation. There's actually a bunch of different 1099s with different letters and acronyms and stuff on the back end. But for the most part, what I'm talking about is the 1099 NEC. There's also one called the 1099 miscellaneous, MISC. That is predominantly used for, I believe, rents, royalties, prize money, things like that. Now, if you're renting a space, you're going to want to send a 1099 MISC to your landlord if they meet all these criteria, which I'm going to go through. Now, a 1099 NEC is designed to report to the IRS, or really any type of 1099, but we're going to just use that as what's in my mind when I'm saying 1099. It's to report to the IRS when you make money from non-employee compensation. So when a contractor makes money, it's basically a way to declare, hey, I made this much money from doing business to business services. So what ends up happening is the hiring company needs to send this report to the IRS and say, hey, I paid this copywriter, I paid this website designer, I paid this coach, I paid this whomever, this much money, and they need to go claim that on their taxes. And here are the criteria for when you need to send them to the IRS. So number one is you need to send them, this is the first filter, to any vendor of yours who provided services to your business. So if you are just a person who hired a lawn care company for your personal front yard, no, you don't have to send them that because it is only for business to business. So from the perspective of a business owner, did you hire anyone to perform services for your business? So that's number one. Number two is, did you pay them over $600 over the course of the year? Not in one transaction, but aggregated. Did you pay them over $600 total over the course of the year? So number three is, did you pay them that $600 by ACH, check, cash, or Zelle? Notice that I included Zelle in that. Pay attention to that. If you paid through any of these methods, then you will continue on. You may have to send them a 1099. The last test that I use here is, are they a corporation? Now, you may not know that off the top of your head, right? Because you're like, I don't know what anybody else is. I don't know what their business is classified as. Well, here's your solution. By the end of the year, typically, and I know we're already in January, but as soon as you can, if you don't already have it, you need a W-9 for every service provider you hire. If you take nothing else away from this, when you get a contract to hire any type of service provider, also ask for a copy of their W-9. A responsible service provider has one handy that they just hand out like candy every time that they get hired onto a project. Let me zip over to a quick example here. Let's say you hire someone on Upwork or Fiverr. Keep in mind, Upwork and Fiverr collect these W-9s. Upwork and Fiverr issue the 1099s. So I don't believe that you have to issue one for every contractor you hire on Fiverr and Upwork. So don't worry about those. That's a little bit of a unique detour. But if you directly pay these fees to the contractor, then you have to be on the lookout for this reporting requirement. So how do you know if they're a corporation? Because on their W-9 they give you, so when you hire them, they give you a copy of their W-9 and you find out, hey, this person is a S corporation or a C corporation or taxed as an S corporation. Even if they are LLC taxed as an S corporation, then they are exempt from having to receive the 1099 NEC. So you don't have to send one. So basically this whole step-by-step thing, and I have a decision tree graphic I always use for this, which is to filter out, like kind of like the yes/no decision tree, right? So number one, are they providing services to your business? Number two, did you pay them over $600? Number three, did you pay that $600 by ACH, check, cash, or Zelle? And that means not PayPal, not credit card, not Venmo, not whatever, right? So did you pay that way? And then lastly, are they a corporation or not? If they're not a corporation, then you continue on. And that smaller group of contractors that made it all the way through that filtration system will get 1099s. So basically, you're going to go through this filtration. For those DIYers out there, you want to be using one of two things in your QuickBooks. One is the transaction list by vendor, and the other one is the 1099 detail report. Now, that's a little more advanced because what it turns out you can do in QuickBooks is you can tag vendors that are subject to getting 1099s in your QuickBooks, store their W-9s in there, and actually manage and track how much you're paying them. So the 1099 process is really easy and seamless. And you can even have QuickBooks Online do it for you. So you want to be tracking that in your bookkeeping. This is why it's so important, by the way. This is a total QuickBooks time saver, life hack, whatever you want to call it, to make sure every one of your transactions has the vendor listed. That is crucial because then we can run a transaction list by vendor, see all the transactions that you paid to that particular person, and come up with it really quickly how much you paid them. So if you're using a spreadsheet or something like that, just make sure you're consistently naming the person that's the payee when you pay them. And then maybe you can do some type of pivot table or fancy Excel work to figure out how to get down to the amount that you would have to issue the 1099 for that person. So again, do you need to file the 1099s? You do if you need to issue them for any of your contractors, service providers, business-to-business service providers. And when in doubt, you can always ask your bookkeeping or tax professional, do I need to send one to this person? Just make sure you have that W-9 on file because I'll bet you that if they push back and say, hey, you don't need to send me one of these, I'm a corporation, you just need to have that W-9 on your records to show and prove that that's the case. Now, a question I get all the time is, do I need to send one to foreign contractors? So you do not need to send a 1099 to foreign contractors. However, you do need to get this document called the W8BEN. So you need to get that form and you need to have that in your records. Basically, that form is in plain English, a declaration that they're a foreign contractor and they don't need a 1099. But they need to submit that to you and sign it to say, hey, I'm representing that I don't need to do this. So that, if they're lying or anything bad is happening, that, they're on the hook, not you. Just keep that in mind. So make sure you're getting a copy of the W8BEN and make sure you're getting a copy of that W-9 for your domestic contractors. That makes your bookkeeper or your tax pro's life infinitely better that you have that information ready to go. The only information you need in order to file the 1099s is actually the information on that W-9 form. So if you have that ready to go, then you're ready for the deadline, which, by the way, is January 31st to file with the IRS and most state authorities. So you have to file by January 31st to have everything ready and to just be able to fill out the amounts that you paid each of your contractors and their information from their W-9. So pretty simple requirement. Welcome back. So we're going to talk about what to do when you receive a 1099, who we need to send them to and why, and when we need to send them. So I'm going to talk about what happens when you receive a 1099 from one of your customers. So we're going to sit on the other side of the table on this transaction here. And very often, our service-based business owners are in both seats every single year. You're getting 1099s for the income that you generated, but you're also issuing 1099s for the money that you spent on your vendors and contractors. So it's kind of this little circle of life, right? So we're going to dive into what happens when you get a 1099. All right, so there's a couple of scenarios here. Let's say that you receive a 1099 in the mail from a customer and it says that you were paid, I don't know, $1,000 over the course of the year. And you agree with that. You're like, yep, that's in my bookkeeping. I have it in my income. I show that I made this much money. It's in my QuickBooks or it's in my bank account or in my spreadsheet or whatever, right? And you're planning on claiming that. If that's the case, you do not have to do anything. There is no new taxes on the money on that 1099. Here's the thing. All the 1099 is doing is it should be simply telling the IRS and telling you what you already know, which is that you made that money over the course of the year. Now, if you haven't claimed that money, this is your chance because the IRS will be making sure this is a great tool they use for auditing is, okay, Shannon said that she only made $50,000 this year, but she has 1099s that people have sent in saying she's made over 100. How did that happen, Shannon? So that is a key item that they're going to look for. So if you get sloppy, right, with telling the story straight, then they're going to notice that. So make sure you're claiming all your income. Make sure you've got all of that listed. And if someone paid you by ACH, check, cash, or Zelle, then you're going to have to be prepared to get that 1099. Now, again, that doesn't mean anything new for your taxes if you are following the law and doing it correctly. If you're claiming all your income, then there's really no action required. The 1099 actually becomes, for a tax pro, one of the most useless documents if you have good bookkeeping, because it should tell us what we already know. And we shouldn't have to do anything extra if we see one. But what we do is make sure everything matches, which we'll talk about more in tomorrow's episode. So you receive a 1099. Now, let's say, hypothetically, you're like, why did I get this? What's going on? I don't know if I ever even worked with this person. I don't think I made this much money. Or, hey, they paid me by credit card. Why are they sending me this? Or I just, did something personally for them. Or I paid for lunch. Like, why are they sending this to me? Or whatever it is. So if that's the case and you're like, I don't understand why I'm getting this and I think it's wrong. Here's my tip. Do not go to anyone except the person or company that sent it to you. This is coming from the company that sent it to you, from the company that paid you, allegedly. So the company that sent this to you is the one who filed it. Do not go to the IRS. Do not go to state agencies. It won't make a difference. You have to go to the source, which is the company that hired you, the customer. And you have to be able to tell them, hey, I think this is wrong because I'm actually a corporation and shouldn't get this. Or I actually think you paid me less than $600, or you paid me by credit card and you shouldn't have to issue me this. Do highlight discrepancies. Do not dismiss them. If you disagree with getting one because of the criteria that I discussed in yesterday's episode, if you think that you're exempt based on those, then say something. Because if you get a 1099, for example, if you get a 1099 from a customer who paid you $1,000 via credit card, you could, I'm not saying you will, but you could get double hit for that $1,000 because you're going to get a different one. You're going to get a different 1099 from the credit card company, which again, we'll talk about tomorrow, and the one from the customer for the same $1,000. So you want to make sure that that customer understands that they don't have a reporting requirement if they paid you by credit card. And not everyone knows this. So it's an opportunity to say, hey, I don't think this is correct. Definitely come from a positive place with it, when you communicate, but just let them know, hey, I'm not sure if this is correct. And if you receive the 1099, you just have to make sure you're reporting all that income on your tax return. Now, if you think something is wrong, like, hey, I'm a corporation or I elected the S corporation this year, and I don't think I should have to get this 1099. Ask yourself, did you tell anyone that you became the S corporation? So what we do in our S Corp success plan, which by the way is enrolling for February right now to get the S Corp implemented for your business, one of the last steps we do is make sure your W-9 gets updated. You heard me talk about this in the prior episode, that the W-9 is kind of the quote unquote declaration form that contractors give to their customers to say, hey, here's all my information for when the time comes that you need to send me a 1099. It's all on here. And one of those things that it says is, what type of business are you? And if you say corporation, then the company, the customer who's sending the 1099s should go, oh, she's immune, he's immune. We don't have to send them a 1099. So it's really important that they have an updated W-9 on file for you. So if you have not done that, if you've elected the S corporation especially, or if there's any updates, address changes, or anything else, name changes, EIN changes, if there's anything that impacts that W-9, make sure you are sending proactively. You are sending out new ones because the customer may not be asking for an updated one, and they may be sending it to an old address. They may be sending it to an old company. You have to make sure that all that stuff is updated. So I actually here's a little hack. I have a reminder every October to send an updated W-9 to anyone who needs it. And then just do a confirmation to say, hey, by the way, nothing's changed. Use the one you have on file. It's just good practice. And make sure that you are collecting that for all contractors, but you're also providing it if you are a contractor or vendor. Attach it to your contract. Just provide it proactively up front. Here's the last thing. If you receive a 1099 NEC that represents income that you earned personally, or it's attached to your social security number. For example, when you sent a W-9, you may have put your social, but then later in the year, you got an LLC or you filed to get the S Corp election or whatever. And now you're like, ooh, yeah, that 1099 is under my social and I'm a business now and I want to claim it under my business. What do I do? Okay. Two things. One, if you are a single member LLC or a sole proprietor and you're filing a Schedule C, what you're going to want to do is just claim that on your Schedule C under your social, okay? You're just going to lump it in with your income. It's totally fine. Achieves the same objective, really. So you're going to lump that in with your income on your Schedule C, but make sure you give them your EIN. Make sure you get them to issue, the correct one in the next round. So basically, take this one as a mulligan, but give them the EIN next time. Give them the W-9. Just do that correctly. And if you're listening to this well before the deadline, get on that right now. Go make sure the business name and the business EIN is on all your W-9s. And then the second thing is, if you are an S corporation, for example, and they sent you a 1099 on your social, because that's the W-9 they had on file, there's a couple things. Number one, as an S corporation, you don't necessarily need the 1099. Again, it does no harm because you're claiming the income anyway. But if you got one that has one with your social on it, you do not want that to happen, because then you ideally have to claim it on the Schedule C. You have to claim it again under your social. It's complicated. If you can, if it's reasonable to do so, see if you can get a revised one or have them amend it to say 0. Because technically, if you're an S corporation, then you don't need to be getting them. You just don't. And you can avoid the hassle. I've had this happen a couple times where I elected the S corporation last year and folks sent me, even though I sent them an updated W-9, they still sent me the 1099s and I said, hey, can you just reissue a 0 one because I don't need one? And that was totally fine. So those are options for you. And again, if you receive one, then technically you need to do a little bit of tax magic to be able to claim it properly. I'm not going to go into the details, but talk to your tax pro if that happens to you and get some advice. But just know that the company, the customer, always has the option of amending and putting zeros there. So that's totally fine too. Nothing to stress over. So again, if you receive 1099s, just make sure you're claiming all of the income. That is the biggest thing. And if you're already claiming it, then this is just some extra paperwork for your tax pro. No big deal at all. If you have any questions on the 1099s, do feel free to reach out. Text me. My number is 860-609-6374. Let me know if you're learning anything new in this series we're doing and if I can help you in any way with your 1099 questions. Everyone says you need to get a bookkeeper, but what good is that if you don't know how to read the financial statements they give you? If you're hesitating to ask questions on your numbers, or you're not even looking at them because you don't know how to turn them into actions, we're now offering an accessible option for you to get the support you need to use your financial statements effectively. It's called the CFO On Demand. You can bring your financials to a call with me or message me privately about what's going on with your business. We will even go over what documents you need to send your tax pro so you feel prepared and confident this tax season. Want to learn more? Head to thecfoondemand.com and the link is down in the show notes. Again, that's thecfoondemand.com. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.